Hi guys, my name is Preben and I'm the COO here at Vision. And today we finally have the pleasure of showing you our brand new flagship competition chassis. And today we'll go through a deep dive of the chassis and all of its details. Over the years as a chassis manufacturer, we have received a lot of feedback on our products and we greatly appreciate this feedback because when we decided to make our new product, we pulled up this feedback and then incorporated as much as we could into this new chassis. When we finally had a sketch ready of the chassis, we consolidated a lot of the top shooters in Norway and some of our sponsored shooters to get their feedback on the chassis and then work our way from there. So over the last 1.5 years, there has been made a lot of changes, but the principle or our idea of the chassis has still stayed the same. First, we'll go through some of the general features of the chassis, and then we'll go through a more of a detailed deep dive, starting off at the buttstock and then moving our way forward, going through everything possible. The most insane feature of this chassis, or the largest major upgrade of this chassis, is that instead of following the market standard of using 6061 aluminum, we decided to take it a lot steps up and go for 7075 aluminum, which is a much more premium, stronger, stiffer material. And that's not just for the big parts here, that's for every single part, from the largest, like the chassis base, to the smallest part, like the magazine latch. We think that this has resulted in one of probably the strongest, stiffest and most suitable competition chassis the market has ever seen. Another big feature about this chassis is our choice in screws. The thing we hate the most is buying a premium shooting accessory equipment and then after the first trip to the range, all of the screws are rusty and they just don't look good. Or getting a product that just has blank screws or shiny screws. So because of our resentment of this issue, we have decided to go with all stainless steel black oxidized screws here for this chassis, except for I think one screw, and that's the grip screw, because this is non-visible and it's still stainless steel, just not black. This might not be something you think about when you first see the chassis, but we promise you will be extremely happy about this when the screws on this chassis stay just as nice as you might not be used to with other shooting equipments. The last major general feature about this chassis is our choice in surface finish. So all of these chassis, they will come in 3 different colors. You have the black base color, then you have FDE and one in carbon gray. This might get expanded in the future, but right now, this is the 3 colors it will come in. But our choice in the surface treatment is Cerakote. But before we have used the H series and those coats, and to take this to a new level, we decided to go for the Elite series. This coating can take a lot more beating and it's a lot more durable. Now that we've gone through some of the general features of the chassis, we'll just start off at the buttstock and work our way through. So this is our new Vision Pro buttstock. We have tried to keep some of the same identity as the old Vision buttstock, but feature-wise, this is a completely new buttstock. The mounting system of the buttstock is still the same, so it's one screw from the back into an adapter block into the chassis base. And yes, it will be compatible with our older midsections and chassis that uses the same mounting system, but this will not be for sale like a standalone product for a while. The butt pad is now double shot injection molded, which allows us to use a different mounting system for it. It still has the same design, but it's just now it has 2 screws on the back that locks it into the Buttpad Assembly. This has allowed us to make the butt Buttpad Assembly compatible with a lot of other butt pads, like some limb saver models, the KRG butt pads, and probably more, but we haven't tested more out yet. As I mentioned, the butt pad design or the form of it is still the same, but for people that haven't seen it before, we'll just explain the reason behind the design of it. So with this butt pad, it has a flat contact surface and a very narrow one. This is because of, with most of the butt pads on the market, they are kind of like, they are curved. So you have to place it in the same position every time to get a good contact with it. But when it is flat, you can place it anywhere and get the same contact with the butt pad. And the reason for it being so narrow is that you get much better contact with the whole rifle because it's much easier to get your shoulder around the butt pad, and you get a whole different feel with the chassis. Butt pad has adjustability, of course. It's just adjusted with a quick release button. Just push in the button and then adjust it. So you can adjust it up and down. It has dedicated places it can lock, but it is a lot of them. So you should be able to lock it where you want. The upgrade about this one as well is that you have noticeable clicks in the butt pad. So for every click, there is a position you can lock it in. Having a quick adjustable butt pad or quick adjustability on anything can be a very good thing for adjusting things quickly, but it can also be a bad thing if you are shooting a stage and then by some reason an accident happens and the button gets pushed in and it gets adjusted. So to prevent this from happening, there is one more hole in a small hole where you just insert a tool and then you can lock a screw and it stays just where you want it. It can't be accidentally adjusted. Moving on to the butt pad assembly, we've talked about it a little bit, but just one final. Now that the butt pad is easily removable, you can remove the butt pad and there is 2 ball head screws that makes the noticeable clicks, but it also helps with eliminating the play in the butt pad. So if you for some reason want it tighter, you want it looser, you can just remove the butt pad, tighten those 2 screws and adjust the play in the butt pad assembly. It works on the wing nut principle, but now the butt pad assembly itself, or the bracket for it, is made in one piece. This just helps a lot with stiffness and strength, and you can have internal weight studs in it. This is to allow the user to finely tune the weight and balance of the of the whole chassis, and this is not something we've had before. Speaking about weights, you can also have external weights on the buttstock now. So this is a kit of weights. One goes on the left side here and one on the right side. You can lock these in place and that adds weight to the buttstock as well. So on all of the brackets on the buttstock, they now have guiding rails in them. That's on the brackets and in the pockets. So as you see here, the brackets move in just one axis. It's not possible it can't just jump out of the pocket. So it moves in one axis. And that's a major improvement with this buttstock. In addition to this, in the bottom of the pockets and on the back side of the brackets, you now have the same 45-degree angle. What this helps with is that when you lock it in place, it's forced into the same straight up or the same position, so it locks just in place where you want it and it gets a lot more stiff, so you won't have any wobble in it. So before there was one hole here, but because this is an ambidextrous right-hand, left-hand chassis, which we'll get back to in a second. We made 3 threaded holes. This is because when you're a left-hand shooter, the normal or the highest position for this wing nut can get in place of your cheek and be very uncomfortable here. So what you can do then is just use one of the other holes just after what you need. And as I mentioned, this is a wing nut system. Just tighten, loosen, adjust. But now we have made the wing nuts in 7075 aluminum as well and added a lot of material to the weak points. This is just to add a lot of strength to the wing nuts and prevent anything from breaking. So now that these are aluminum and the brackets are aluminum, to prevent any scratching from happening, we added some polycarbonate washers behind the wing nuts. Also, the Cheekrest is horizontally adjustable, so back and forth, a little bit over an inch. That's easily adjusted by unlocking the 2 screws on the bottom or under the Cheekrest and just sliding it back and forth. Then lock the screws, just hand tight, and you are good to go. We also have 2 screws now instead of 1, so that eliminates any wobble on the tip of the screws. Now onto the Bagrider. This is the place you can really see the strength of our angle and guide rail system. The Bagrider assembly is the only assembly where the bracket and the feature is made in 2 different parts. But to counter any weakness from coming out of this, we've added some centering squares on the bracket and the opposite on the Bagrider to lock it in place and just keep it strong and don't introduce any weakness to it. So as you can see here, I just tighten it a little bit and then you don't have any movement in it. It's as strong as you can get it. Also, now the Bagrider is made longer and straight on the bottom. It's not round on the bottom anymore. That just prevents it from sinking into the pillow and gives you a much more stable position. And for those that want to or used to hold around the Bagrider when shooting prone from a pillow, we have made some nice radiuses around all of the corners just to make it not uncomfortable. So now if you really put pressure on it, you don't feel the corners. It's just nice. Also, the positioning of the Bagrider is now moved lower, so the standard position is straight with the bottom of the buttstock. And the minimum position, this used to be the minimum position on the Vision buttstock, but now the minimum position is much lower, as you can see. This chassis, as with our older Vision chassis, is of course compatible with folding hinge. We know a lot of you prefer folding hinge, but since this is designed to be more of a competition chassis, we wouldn't recommend a folding hinge because this introduces one more weak point to the stiffness and rigidity of the chassis. So the only thing when using a folding hinge that we would recommend is to have the folding on the opposite side of the bolt handle. This is because of the design of the chassis. The folding part, or where it folds, sticks out, and it can, depending on where you have the thumb rest or how big your thumb is, that can be very uncomfortable and hitting your thumb. So we would recommend, if having a folding hinge, to just twist it and have it fold on the opposite side of where you lay your thumb. The final feature of the buttstock, except for of course the QD lock, that's the same on the forend if you want to mount any QD slings, And then the last feature, I'll just have to remove this. The last feature is here, as you can see, on the under the Cheekrest, there is a machined clearance to allow the user for easy barrel cleaning. So you have from the back of the butt pad into the barrel, there is clearance, so you can just stick your rod in here and clean the barrel without removing the buttstock or having a folding hinge. So one more thing about the buttstock that I forgot to mention is of course the length of pull adjustability. So you have 3 different dedicated spots to adjust the length of pull. So this is the longest, middle, center. But to be allowed to adjust the length of pull more, we also have different lengths on the adapter block. So this is the standard it comes with. With this, the lowest length of pull is about 13 inches and longest 14 inches. And then with our shortest adapter block, the shortest length of pull you can get is 12¼ inch. And with our longest adapter block, it's right about 14½ inch. That's more of information about that is on the product page. So now that we're finished with the buttstock, just let's move on to the middle section of the chassis base and then forward from there. So the chassis comes with 2 thumb rests. You get one right and one left. So the thumb rests are adjustable in all of the screw holes here. That's 6 screw holes. So you have a lot of adjustability positions with the thumb rest. It can also be rotated if you like to have a straight thumb rest or if you like to angle it down. The thumb rest is now made wider and bigger with some grip in it, just for it to be more of a competition thumb rest and give you more contact surface with the thumb. Now onto the grip. This is our in-house designed and manufactured grip. This will come with all of our chassis, and when we designed this grip, we went through a lot of prototyping and designing to just get the right form. Here we also consolidated a lot of the top shooters and our sponsored shooters to just get the right form of the grip. So we wanted to go with a vertical grip, a very big grip to fill in your whole hand. So now we are very happy with how this grip turned out, and from what we have tested on the market and everything, this is the only grip that really fills out your hand. With other grips you get an empty space in the middle of the hand and it just doesn't feel right. And also the angle here on the back of the grip just helps give contact surface to your thumb up to the thumb rest. So as you can see, it just, when you lay your hand on, you could just get the right contact everywhere, except from your trigger finger, of course. There is some empty space between the grip and your trigger finger. As I mentioned before, this chassis is ambidextrous right hand, left hand. We really wanted to do this, but we only allowed ourselves to do it if we could make it look nice. So I really believe we managed to make it look nice and beautiful by just having a block that fills in the opposite hole. So here it follows all of the angles and everything, doesn't look out of place and adds a lot of contrast to the chassis. Having a right hand, left hand ambidextrous chassis is really a nice feature, because even if you are right hand or left hand, it's good for both. Like left hand shooters get, if you want to resell the chassis, you get 90% more of the market to resell your chassis to. And if you are right hand, you also get 10% more market to resell your chassis to. So it's just a really, really nice feature that doesn't look out of place at all with the chassis. Moving on from there, we of course have the trigger guard. As we've always had, we have an opening in the trigger guard to access the trigger adjustments very easily. You just put your tool through the hole and adjust your trigger. So you don't have to remove the rifle to adjust your trigger. And as with all of our other chassis, this is wide ambidextrous magazine release, and this wraps around the trigger guard just to get a very easily removable magazine. What's new about this chassis is that we listened to all of the feedback, and just over the years as a chassis manufacturer, we have seen that having an adjustable magazine height is very important and just makes life easier. So this magwell is height adjustable especially if you shoot 22s or rimfire. This is very nice, and we've seen with a lot of magazines there is a lot of difference on magazine from brand to brand. So with the magazine height adjustment, you can easily adjust your magazine to fit just how you like it. You can have it all the way up, you can have some wobble in it, but you can just adjust it how you want. So with this chassis, you can adjust it so you never feel or get any feeding problems ever again. So to adjust the magazine height, we will come out with a video on this, but it's very easy. You just put your magazine in, unlock the locking screw on the inside of the trigger guard, and then tighten or loosen the guiding screws until the mag latch catches the lip or the catch lip on the magazine. So as you can see here, this is adjusted how we would want it, and you have some side-to-side play, but this won't really matter on the feeding. So you don't really have anything. It just feels nice. In addition to this, we didn't feel like this was enough, because as you may have noticed, we have listened to all of you and finally managed to make a product with a barricade stop that's all the way as close as we could get it to the magwell or magazine. So when you have a barricade stop like this, often there is an issue when shooting off a pillow, that if you shoot off a pillow and have a long magazine and the magazine touches the pillow, it gets tilted. If it gets tilted, you get feeding issues. So to prevent this, we also added a magazine length adjustment. This is very easily adjustable as well. You just remove 2 locking screws, pull out the plate, adjust 4 screws, put it back in, test it. With this block or magazine length block, the chassis is compatible with AICS and AW pattern magazines. So now on to probably the biggest feature or the most asked about feature from our previous chassis, and that's the barricade stop. Now the barricade stop is wide and aggressive, just completely flat on the front with a slight angle, and moved as closely to the magazine as we possibly could get it. From doing this and just making the chassis as it is, we managed to get a really, really nice balancing point straight out with no weights in the chassis. So this rifle has a 26-inch almost full profile. It's full profile towards here, and then it has a slight angle to get it to go flush with our compensator that's right over 1 inch in diameter. You get the balancing point 3 inches from the Barricade Stop, so your balance point sits approximately here without any weights in it. The last thing about the middle section of the chassis is of course our accessory mounts. In the future we will make accessories to go on here. We can make everything from 2-shot holders, magnets. There's a lot of options and this will come in the future. Another general feature about this chassis or major upgrade is that we've added a lot of materials in weak points and to walls to just make the chassis as strong and stiff as possible. So as you can see, just with the action here, there is a very thick wall. This is because the wall on the forend is extremely thick, just to add a lot of strength, but to remove as much flex in the forend as possible, we also extended this thick wall all the way back to where the bolt handle goes in the pocket. So there's really added a lot of materials just to make the chassis as stiff as possible. So the chassis itself, just base chassis, Remington 700 short action, weighs about 5.5 pounds. So now that we are finished with the middle section of the chassis, we'll move on to the front, and here it's also a lot of new features and upgrades. So we'll start off with the M-Lock, of course. We have M-Locks, just so you can mount whatever accessories you might want. But since we managed to get a much longer forend now, we now have 11 M-Lock slots. So there is 11 M-Lock slots allowing you to mount as much accessories or weights and just as much as you want. And then of course we have the RF full forend length Arca rail. That's almost a must now on competition chassis. Moving on to the inside of the forend, or more of the top and inside. As you can see now, there, as we've always had, we always had the possibility to mount night vision bridges to the top of the chassis, but now we also have one more hole. So we have drilled holes and tapped holes. This is to further improve the stiffness of the night vision bridges. So in the drilled hole, you put in pins that locks in the forend and then locks in the top cover. And when you do this, you just eliminate any play in the night vision bridge. And if you're using night vision with your night vision bridge, this will stay the same or closer to the same versus only using screws. So on the inside of the forend, there is, as mentioned, there's added a lot of material and it's made wider to the walls, but also on the bottom. There's also added a lot of material on the bottom just to strengthen everything up. But probably the coolest and best feature about the forend is that on the inside of the forend there are bridges going from one side to another on the bottom. It doesn't come in the way of the barrel, but there's bridges that are just, it adds a lot of strength to the forend itself. So with a lot of chassis on the market, if you push your forend like this or press it together, you can feel it flex. But with this forend, that will never happen. Even though there's walls inside the forend, we still have the possibility to add internal weights to the forend. Our old weights or universal modular weights won't fit in this forend, but we have some new ones that just drops in the pockets and are attached with 2 screws on the bottom. So you can have 5 weights on the inside of this forend, and those 5 weights adds up to 2 pounds of weight. And then the last feature of the inside or top of the forend is that now, instead of just having small bridges you have to stack across the forend, we now have a full top cover. Firstly, we wanted to make this because we think it looks badass to have a fully enclosed forend, but also this serves a purpose. So when you have a full length one piece top cover that goes from the front to the back, this actually helps to stiffen up and make the chassis more dead. So what we mean about dead is that it eliminates a lot of vibrations. Even though the base model here, because of material choices, thickness, everything, don't really have a lot of vibrations in it. But when you add the top cover, it just helps to stiffen up and make it more complete, to just remove nearly all vibrations in the chassis. The last thing before moving on to the bottom of the forend is that on the front of the chassis we made more room on the bottom than there will be on the top when having a night vision or full top cover on. This is because we tested a lot of chassis, our old chassis, other chassis, by just slamming it down on a pillow, and when you do that with most chassis you hear the barrel flex and hit, or forend and barrel flex and hit the bottom of the forend or the exit of the forend. So moving on to the bottom of the forend, of course, as I mentioned, we have a full length Arca rail, but in addition to this it's also RRS-Lock compatible. So we have RRS-Lock holes from the front to the back. If you use an RRS-Lock or any RRS equipment, this allows you to use the pin and lock it in place, and it stays where you want it to stay. It's just secured in place. In addition to this, the base is of course made wider to give a better balance point of the rifle. It won't tilt as easily. But the biggest upgrade about the bottom of the forend is of course our new V-Lok system. This is just a slot where you can put in what attachments you want. So instead of having M-locks here, we didn't really see the need for M-locks and wanted to add something that would give the bottom of the forend more grip on the pillow. So we made sticky bars. These will come in two different variations, one in aluminum for those that don't want the weight, and one's in brass. These are in brass but are just in raw brass. They will probably just come in black. But the good feature about the brass ones is that they add weight. But the nice thing about the V-Lok is that in the future we have plans of coming out with a lot of different things you can have here. For example, you can have, or this is 6 different just blocks you push in, tighten, screw, and it locks in place. But instead of having 6 sticky bars, you can put in an M-lock bar wherever you want and have sticky bars on the rest, or you can have nothing. That also works and doesn't compromise the balance of the rifle because it just removes in the middle and you still have the balancing points wide on the side. But yeah, you can have Harris adapters, M-lock, Picatinny rails, wherever, and then you can place it wherever in whatever of these 6 spots that you would like, and just make the rifle just as perfect to your needs as you would want it. So before I forget to mention it, with this chassis also it will be delivered anti-vibration or wedging washers that go between the chassis and the locking screw. What this does is that when you lock or torque your action screws, you torque them to 65 inch-pounds, but then when you are going to to loosen the screws again, you have to apply a lot more torque to get them loose. What this allows you to do is just introduce a lot more vibration to the rifle before the locking or action screws gets loose and you have to re-torque them. So we think that this is a really important upgrade to this rifle and will help you out just a lot. So that is the end of our deep dive into the Vision Pro chassis. If you have any more questions or just want more information, you can leave a comment. You can visit the product page on our website, visionprc.com. That will be down in the description. Or you can contact our support team. That email will also be down in the description.